Hey all, if you find my channel is interesting, it is productive, and it can give you some benefit, please do like, subscribe and share. Thank you.
Hello friends, welcome to all of you once again of my channel, that is JE Physics Maniac. So today we will have the second lecture of the series of electrostatics. So the first thing that we'll learn today is coordinate form of Coulomb's law. So let's see how to proceed. So we have already checked that F12 vector is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R12 square into R12 cap. So suppose if I take a coordinate space, let us take a coordinate space. I'm taking, this is x-axis, here I'm taking the y-axis, and let us assume this is z-axis. Alright, thank you. So now here, if you see, this is x, this is y, and this is z. If I keep one charge particle here, let us say q1, coordinate of it is given by x1, y1, z1, and coordinate of this q2 is given as x2, y2, z2, right? And similarly, I will take that this radius vector joining the origin and q1, and there is another radius vector that is joining origin and q2, and obviously I will take another radius vector which is joining q1 and q2, right? Fine. So here, now if I go in detail, I will see that if I call this as, let us say, r1 vector, this is r2 vector, and this one is r vector. So as you can clearly see that this small triangle will follow the triangle law of vector addition, that is r1 vector plus r vector is equal to r2 vector. So from here I can write r1 vector plus r vector is equal to r2 vector. Alright, so from there I can easily write that r2 vector, sorry, I want to get r vector is equal to r2 vector minus r1 vector. Now this r2 vector minus r1 vector, you can write it as x2 minus x1 I cap plus y2 minus y1 j cap plus z2 minus z1 k cap, right? Okay, so this is the r vector that is standing out now. Now if I want to explain it in detail, so as I have written, r vector is equal to x2 minus x1 I cap plus y2 minus y1 j cap plus z2 minus z1 k cap. So mod of r vector, that will stand out to be, if I write mod of r vector, it will come root under of x2 minus x1 whole square plus of y2 minus y1 whole square plus of z2 minus z1 whole square. Now if you go back to Coulomb's law, that f vector was equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q1 q2 by r12 cube into r12 vector. So now if I want to fit these results in this equation, it will look like 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q1 q2 r vector, in the sense I will write x2 minus x1 I cap plus y2 minus y1 j cap plus of z2 minus z1 k cap whole divided by, this is r12 cube, it means this to the power 3 by 2. So it will become x2 minus x1 whole square plus of y2 minus y1 whole square plus of z2 minus z1 whole square whole to the power 3 by 2. So that is the form that we need to remember over here. I repeat once again. So this is coordinate form of Coulomb's law, that is in this format, that is F12 vector. Correct. So we will be using this particular form in various upcoming questions. So let's move ahead. Right. So now I'm just taking this particular thing into account and we will remember that result only. So without writing much here, I will just remember the crux of the calculation that we got. So I will just remember that F12 vector is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q1 q2 into x2 minus x1 I cap plus y2 minus y1 j cap plus of z2 minus z1 k cap divided by this whole factor mod of r actually to the power 3 by 2. So I better write r12 referring the mode of it. Okay, fine. So now let us come back to the most famous and debated questions in electrostatic to understand Coulomb's law. As you can see here that there are two silk threads. These are silk threads. So the reason they are chosen to be silk threads because these are insulating material. So whatever charge that are present in these two balls that we can see will not be leaking through this thread. So if it is having charge plus q, it will continue to have charge plus q. And this whole system is in equilibrium. This is in equilibrium. All right. So I have to figure out the condition of equilibrium. Our target is to figure out the condition of equilibrium, nothing else. So we want to figure out the condition of equilibrium. So this particular thing can be attempted in different methods. I will show you three methods. So the first method we are going to discuss is actually force method. So I'll start this method we will call force method. As you can look in the diagram, as you can see in the diagram, that there are three forces. This is electrostatic repulsion acting on this charge because of this charge. There is another force, that is tension acting on the silk thread passing through this point of suspension, and mg which is acting in the vertically downward direction, right? So if I divide these forces into component, you can check this. T will have a component acting in this direction, that will be T cos theta, and this will have another component acting along the horizontal line, that is T sin theta. Now since the system is in equilibrium, so I can write summation of fx is equal to 0 as well as summation of fy is also equal to 0. The reason I'm writing this is because the system is in equilibrium, right? So if I make summation of fx equal to 0, you can see that this force Fe is basically balancing T sin theta. So I can write from here that T sin theta is equal to Fe. And similarly from Fy, T cos theta is balancing force due to gravity. So I can write T cos theta is equal to mg. If I divide, we'll get tan theta is equal to Fe by mg, right? And it is easy to calculate Fe. We can easily write that this Fe is basically equal to K. K means 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q square divided by separation between them is d square. So this is the electrostatic repulsion. If we substitute, we can get anything we want. So this is one method that we call force method, that is resoluting the forces along x and y axis. We establish the condition of equilibrium and hence we got this result. Okay now? Alright. Now let us see another method. What is that method? This method is basically this method 2, which is also referred as torque method. We know one thing. What we know, that I will write the statement over here. कि if a system is in static equilibrium, then if a system is in static equilibrium, then the net torque acting on the system about any point inside the system is equal to 0. So this line is very important. We have to take about any point inside the system. We cannot choose an arbitrary point which is lying outside the system. So here in this case, just for reference, I will take this point to be grunted, that is point of suspension. Let us call this point as S, point of suspension. So tension is passing through point of suspension, so I can write torque due to tension about point S will be equal to 0. So there will be only two forces which are providing the torque, that is Fe trying to rotate it in that direction and mg trying to rotate in this direction. So torque due to these two forces has to be 0. Now the easiest way that we can measure torque for a system is, if this is the force, that is force acting along horizontal line, we have to take perpendicular distance here. So what we can write here, I can write torque due to Fe about point S is equal to Fe into, if this is L, so this is going to be L cos theta. So Fe into L cos theta. Similarly, we can take the torque due to this is Fg. So I have to take this perpendicular distance here. So if I take that perpendicular distance, this comes to be L sin theta. So I can calculate torque due to mg about point S is equal to mg into L sin theta. Now if you equate these two torques, as the net torque has to be 0, our result is going to come how much? Tan theta is equal to Fe by mg. It is the same result that we got through method 1. Correct? So that is how we employ the torque method. चलो आगे देखते हैं. There is another method, ठीक है ना? And this method we will apply with a concept that we have studied in class 11, that is called Lami's theorem. ठीक है? So I am showing you these three methods, and it is up to your jurisdiction which method you want to employ, which is suitable for you, which will save time, right? ठीक है ना? Fine. So Lami's theorem means what? If two and more forces are passing through the same point, they will establish equilibrium. So if I redraw the diagram, then this is the charge. You are getting this as Fe, this is mg, and this is the force, that is tension. Let us talk about the angles. So if this is theta, undoubtedly this is theta, this is 90 degree, this also is 90 degree, and this angle is nothing but 180 degree minus theta, right? So Lami's theorem tells that force divided by sine of opposite angle, they are constant. So we can write Fe by sine. Sine opposite angle means 180 minus theta, right? I hope you are getting clarity in it. Is equal to mg. This is mg, vertically downward direction. Opposite angle is 90 plus theta. So sine of 90 plus theta. If you solve, again we are going to get tan theta is equal to Fe by mg. Alright, so whether you follow method 1 or you follow method 2 or you follow method 3, you are going to get the same answer, that is tan theta is equal to Fe by mg. That is the beauty of physics, that even if you are approaching the same thing by different methods, you should reach a common conclusion. If you are not reaching a common conclusion, कुछ तो झोल है यार in between, ठीक है ना? You will be gifted -1. चलो. So next, on the basis of the concept that we have learned, I have taken a question from Irodov, and we will discuss that what is the thing. So let us read the question. They are saying that there are two small equally charged spheres, each of mass m, are suspended from the same point by silk thread. Silk thread is important. No leaking of charge. The distance between the sphere x is much less than L. So this separation between them is much less than L, that you can see in the diagram. Find the rate of charge with which the charge leaks off each sphere. Right? It is leaking not through the silk threads, but in the surroundings it is leaking through. If their approach velocity is v is equal to a root x. Now, first I will directly employ the condition that we have just learned. What is that condition? That condition I have learned ki if they are in equilibrium, tan theta is equal to Fe by mg. So the initial advice to all of you will be just pause the screen here, try this question for 3-4 minutes. If not, then go on to look on the discussion. Okay, right. Now tan theta equal to what? Tan theta equal to, I can check, this is the perpendicular and this is the base. If I take this angle to be alpha, right? So here in this case I am writing tan alpha, I mean theta here is alpha. Tan alpha is equal to what? Tan alpha is equal to this by this. So I can write x by 12. Alright, fine. So I can clearly write that x by 2L is equal to Fe by mg. No problem. So I can write x by 2L is equal to Fe. Fe means what? Fe means 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q square by x square. Alright, divided by mg. Fine. So from here I will segregate this. Q square is equal to how much you are getting, that is important. Q square is equal to, we are getting, if I am not wrong, 4 pi epsilon naught mg x cube by 2L. So this is what we are getting as q square. So now they are asking dq dt. So if I differentiate bluntly, that is 2q dq dt is equal to 4 pi epsilon naught mg by 2L. By the way, there is a statutory warning. Do check out the calculation क्योंकि मैं इसमें champion हूँ calculation mistake का. So by 2L into 3x square dx dt. So this dx dt is nothing but the v value that they have given, that is equal to a root x. Correct? So now if I substitute the values over here, we can safely get the value of dq dt. Fine. Okay, so I am not going to substitute the value and unnecessarily destroy the time in terms of calculation, so that you can check it out. So everyone, please do check it out. So again I am saying what I have employed, the idea that I have employed over here is a simple idea, that is I have just bluntly substituted the value that tan alpha is equal to Fe by mg. So when I am substituting Fe by mg, then after that I am getting a specific value of this q square. Then after getting q square, I am simply differentiating and getting the answer. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, so let us move on to the next question. Right? Okay. So the next question is also suitably chosen from Irodov. Correct? It is also a good question, rather a very nice question. So in this particular question, let us see what is given. So they are saying two positive charges q1 and q2 are located at the points with radius vector r1 and r2. Find a negative charge q3 and a radius vector r3 of the point at which it has to be placed, so that the force acting on each of the three charges to be 0. Now this is a direct application of what we have learned in coordinate form of Coulomb's law. See, that's why I keep on saying it is very important to gather concept. If you study every single aspect of the theory, problem will not give you much headache. So let us first draw the diagram. Let us have a neat and clean diagram. After that, we will follow the subsequent thing. And by the way, in that meantime, when I'm drawing the diagram for 3-4 minutes, you can pause the screen and you can try on your own. Okay, fine. So this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and this is the z-axis that I'm taking. And I'm also taking that the charge here, it is q1, and I'm taking another charge here, it is q2. No problem. So here I'm gonna taking, this is r1 as it is suggested in the question, this is r2. All right, and this is the line joining between the charges, and somewhere in the middle we will have r3. So let us take it here. All right, fine. So here is q3 basically. So let us say this is q3, and I'm taking this vector, this is r1 vector, this is r2 vector, obviously this is r3 vector. Right, now from triangle law vector addition, I can safely write this vector is basically coming to be r2 vector minus r3 vector. All right, and similarly this vector is coming to be r1 vector minus r3 vector. It's very simple, you can clearly see. Right, now they are saying the net force is 0. So net force is 0 in the sense I can write that is force between 2 and 3 plus force between 3 and 1, right, is equal to 0. So it's a simple vector notation question. There is nothing to worry much about this. So if I write now, I will write K q1 q2 into, not q1 q2, it is q2 and q3. So this I will write q2 q3, and this is r2 vector minus r3 vector divided by, if you remember properly, what I have to write, mod of r2 vector minus r3 vector whole cube plus of k q1 q3 into r1 vector minus r3 vector divided by mod of r1 vector minus r3 vector whole cube is equal to 0. All right, fine. So from here, actually the value that I will get, I will write, so I will get q2 divided by r2 minus r3, r2 minus r3 whole square is equal to, we will get q1 of mod of r1 vector minus r3 vector whole square. Correct, fine. Now here you see I can do one thing, that the direction of the r2 vector minus r3 vector and the direction of r1 vector minus r3 vector are anti-parallel to each other, right? So I can write here that if you check, this is the position of q3 and this is the direction of r2 vector minus r3 vector, this is the direction of r1 vector minus r3 vector. So I can write here that r2 vector minus r3 vector and r1 vector minus r3 vector are anti-parallel to each other. All right, so if they are anti-parallel to each other, that means if I take this as r23 unit vector, this as r13 unit vector, r23 is in this direction, r13 is in that direction. So can I write comfortably that r23 cap is equal to minus of r13 cap? Yes, I can write. So I can write r23 vector minus this right, divided by mod of R2 vector minus R3 vector is equal to minus of R1 vector minus R3 vector divided by mod of R1 vector minus R3 vector. So this is the condition that we will get, correct? So if you solve, then definitely you are going to get the answer. I'm not doing the calculation, I'm leaving the calculation part up to you. So the calculation you have to do, and that's a very healthy practice. Probably in almost every question I will leave the calculation part up to you so that you are engaged in this lecture, and that's the sole purpose of this lecture, right? Okay. So again, from the beginning I will discuss. It is a simple application of the coordinate form of Coulomb's law. I have taken two charges q1 and q2 as they are describing with radius vector r1 and r2, and q3 is in the middle. So thereby, after depiction of the corresponding direction of the radius vectors, I am applying the triangle law of vector addition to get the radius vector between 3 and 2, then between 3 and 1, and then I am applying this zero force condition. This is the zero force condition. All right, fine. I hope you have understood. Let's proceed. Okay. So now there is a beautiful question that you can see that I have chosen from one book that is called Mr. Shashibhushan Tiwari's book, which is also a very good reference for IIT Advanced, main and advanced both, right? So in this question, let us first read the question. You pause the screen and try on your own. 6 equal charges have been placed at the vertices of an regular hexagon. Charges at the vertex A is moved to the center of the hexagon. So I will start from the beginning only. So there is plus q, plus q, plus q, plus q, plus q, and this charge here is now moved to the center. So now the center, there is plus q. At A there is no charge as of now. So before proceeding only, I will discuss what is happening here, then I will proceed. So you see that the charge that is on the center, that is of plus q, right? So what is the force acting onto it? The force applied by E on this plus q charge is outward in this direction, that is F. Force applied by B on this charge is outward, that is F. So these two forces cancel each other. So I will write here that force F applied by charges on B and E will cancel each other, right? So is it the only pair which are getting cancelled, or there are other pairs too? Yes. If you see this charge C, that is F, F also applies force outward F. So that means F due to C and F also cancel each other. All right, fine. So there is only one charge remaining for which there will be a net force acting, and this is this charge. This charge will apply force in that direction, and this is the only unbalanced force. So I can write that F acting on the charge at the center, that is F is equal to, if I consider that this vertex to center distance is L, so I can write 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q square by L square. So this is the first part. So first part is over. So there is mutual cancellation of forces due to the charges on the opposite sides, and only one charge, that is at D, will apply some net force F. Correct? So the first part of the question is over. Let us read the second part. Now, what they are saying, that charge at E is also moved to the center so as to double the magnitude of the charge at the center. Now they are saying that charge at E is also moved. Fine. We will check in the next diagram. Let us see here. So now what they are saying, that charge at E is also not present. So this is A and this is B, and charge at E is also moved. So where the charges are staying now? So here is plus Q, here is plus Q, here is plus Q, here is plus Q. These two positions are vacant. So where there is mutual cancellation? Yes, due to these two positions. So this is F, and due to this F. So these two forces cancel each other. But what about the force applied by B on E? There is a force F, all right, and force applied by D on the center, there is also a force F. So the diagram looks like, in this direction there is a force F, in this direction there is a force F. From the simple geometry you can figure out that this angle is equal to 120 degree. So F prime or F nu will be equal to root under of F square plus F square plus 2F square of cos 120 degree, right? So cos 120 is minus half, so simply it turns out to be F only. So even when you displace the charge at position E to the center, the new force will still continue to be F only, right? Do check out the calculation. Again, I'm repeatedly telling you or requesting you to check out the calculations. Okay, so let us go back. Let us have a quick relook of what we have done. So what we have done, nothing. We are taking the positions concretely. First, A point charge is moved here. So from there we can see that the charges lying on different sides or opposite sides along the same line are cancelling each other, because the distance is same from the center, magnitude of the charge is also same, so the force is also same. So it's just that the direction are opposite, correct? And then the similar analogy I am applying when the charge from E is also moved to the center, and when E is moved to the center, only one cancellation is there, that is this line. Else there are two forces which are acting in 120 degree angle. I am applying the vector resolution. Okay, so yeah, let us move on to the next discussion. What is that? Here is the next discussion. So three charges of equal magnitude lie on the vertices of an equilateral triangle ABC. All of them are released simultaneously. The charge A experiences an initial acceleration along AD, where D is the midpoint of the side BC. So the first point we need to learn from here, since A is accelerating along this line, so the first point we need to know that A must be attracted due to the charges at B and C. So if I take these charges are positive, A must be a negative charge. I hope this point is clear, because then only you see, then only A will be attracted along this line. This is also attracted along this line. There are two forces, horizontal, vertical, horizontal, vertical. These two forces cancel each other. These are the net forces because of which it will accelerate, right? So that is the only point we need to know. So A point is basically a negative charge. Now you pick this point B. So let us see what are the forces. Now B and C are positive, so B is repelled by C in that direction. Let us see with force F1, correct? And B is attracted by A with force F2. Now one thing is quite clear, that F1 must be equal to F2. Why? Because charges are same and this distance is also same, because they have said equilateral triangle, correct? So if I join these two forces, see, parallelogram law will come into effect. So this is the resultant acceleration. In which direction B will move, right? It's a very simple question, very simple question, right? I hope you have understood, correct? I repeat once again that since it is given initially that A is moving in the downward direction, so by means of vector method I can easily figure out that indeed the charge of A is attracted. If it is not attracted, then it would have moved along in this direction, then A would have positive. So since it is coming downward, so it is negative, and since it is negative charge, so B and C are positive, so B is repelled by C in the leftward direction, B is attracted by C in this direction. If I join them parallelogram law, by parallelogram law, then this is the direction in which B will accelerate. Okay, fine. Chalo. Next, yeah, so finally we have come to this question. Again I will ask, keep pause the screen, read the question, try on your own, then we'll start, right? So let us say that there are 2 point charges, both are equal, correct? So they are at R1 and R2 respectively. So this is point O I will take. Let us take, here is charge Q1, that is at R1, and I will take that here is, suppose say, charge q2, this is zr2, correct? And if we join them by parallelogram law, then I can comfortably write that this is r1 vector plus r2 vector, right? And here is this q3, correct? So now it's easy, we will check. So due to q2 on q3, force is in that direction, so let us take f2. Due to q1, force is in that direction, let us say this is f1. And you can see that because of this, resultant force will be in this direction, again parallelogram law only, right? So now this resultant force, can I calculate? You can see that these distances are equal. They have said r1 r2 is equal to r. In the question they have said that. So that means I can write f1 is equal to f2. Let us take f. So f net, what can I write? F net is equal to root under of f square plus f square plus, if I take this angle to be theta, so this is also theta, all right? So that is plus 2f square cos theta. That is given as root 3 times of the force applied by either. So that is simply root 3 into f. All right. So this is the crux of the question. Now calculation is up to you. If you calculate, you will get theta is equal to 60 degree. So once you get theta equal to 60 degree, they are demanding r1 dot r2. So if they are demanding r1 dot r2, what I'm supposed to do? Simply I will put r1 dot r2 is equal to mod of r1 mod of r2 into cos theta. Theta equal to 60 degree, r1 r2 same, so I'll write r into cos of 60 degree. So my answer is going to be r square by 2. So it is also a very genuine question, easy question, not much difficult, you can do. All right, that's all. So in the next lecture I will come up with the discussion on electric field, field lines, and E versus R graph. You will see some amazing points, that's for sure, and you will definitely